Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Well, here we are, and you may be saying to yourself, hold up there Willie, me old fella. A bit early to be doing this video, isn't it? Battlegrounds aren't even out yet and you're trying to wrap up Phase 2. And to be fair, I'm not going to argue with you, but I see Battlegrounds as the end of Phase 2 really, and the start of Phase 3. And for these phase by phase reviews, I'm going to be covering the content in the original order that Blizzard proposed, not whatever deviation we end up getting. And just like I didn't include Dire Maul in my Phase 1 review, I'm not including Battlegrounds in Phase 2, so I hope that makes sense. Let's get on to this, shall we? Dire Maul is a piece of content I have to say is pretty solid. It adds a huge amount to the game, new enchants, tribute runs, many new gold farming methods, as well as gear. Overall, the only thing I did not like was the timing at which it came out. By Dire Maul, you can clearly see that Blizzard themselves had begun to understand itemization quite a bit better. And Dire Maul featured many items, especially for healers, that are of exceptional quality. And since Dire Maul had straight up upgrades over many of the other pre-existing dungeons, it would have had a knock-on effect of making groups a little bit more difficult to find for the entry-level dungeons like LBRS, Scholomance or Stratholme. And as mentioned in my Let's Talk video, Blizzard would have expected a capped player to have played on average 5 hours a day by the time Dire Maul came out in order to be level 60. And this was coming off the back of Ian himself saying in a release that Dire Maul was coming out early, as many players had told them they're ready for something new to sink their teeth into, which I'm gonna have to hit with a doubt. Anyways, back on track, I do like the fact the lashes were nerfed in terms of gold generation in comparison to what was predicted from many private servers, as this would have just inflated gold values massively and the best AoE farming classes would have just got even better. Yes, I'm looking at you mages. Tribute runs for the buffs as well as hunters, soloing things are great, content that is specific to one class I believe is good for the game, encourages people to try something new and take advantage of what their class is capable of. Dire Maul East jump runs for warrior plus healer or soloing as a warlock or whatever other class you can push through it is equally as good. Overall I like Dire Maul. So let's call Dire Maul Phase 1.5 if you will, put it in its nice little box and push it to the side as we move on to the real Phase 2. And that is the honor system and ranking. So I've made an effort to branch out my opinion and see what a wide variety of people feel about Phase 2. Others playing the game, various forums across the internet, those going hard on ranking, streaming with or without delay, other people I've talked to in game, people from the Horde and Alliance, and of course, a little bit from myself as well. Phase 2 has been controversial to say the least. The decision to release Battlegrounds aside from Honor and PvP ranking systems has been one that we've been well aware of for months and months now. I predicted it would be a mess, as did many others, but the extent to which it has harmed, yes I believe it has harmed the game, has been massive. The thing is, it's consistent with how Vanilla itself released. In fact, in Vanilla there was a 2-month gap between ranking and Battlegrounds, namely Warsong Gulch and Alterac Valley. So I decided to go back in time and do some investigative journalism. What were people complaining, and I'd no doubt they would be complaining about something 1 month after the Honor system had released back in the day. Honor was released on the 8th of April 2005 and Battlegrounds on the 7th of June 2005. So let's take a journey back to the World of Warcraft forums on the 24th of May 2005 and see how people were getting on with world ranking back then. So this was the only real page from the era that I could find, and unfortunately the links were not redirecting, which made me really sad. I really wanted to know exactly what the bunny hop was and how I too can abuse this mechanic. Anyway, apart from everyone remarking that shamans are in fact the most overpowered class, yes you heard it here first folks, and the general confusion around how the PvP system actually works, which is still ongoing to this day, there isn't much about how the game actually is to play, or anything about server balance for that matter. Which I guess is fair since servers were smaller. It's a small slice to look at for sure, but I'm working with what I have here. People seem more concerned with how their classes play above anything else. Let's fast forward to the forums of today and see what we have. First of all, we don't have a PvP dedicated forum. Okay, guess we're looking at general discussion then. So, from what I can see at a glance, people are talking about server balance and population, the hot topic being the mass migration of Alliance guilds away from Flamelash to Earthshaker just before the free transfer closure. Now that's rough. Those are European PvP realms, by the way, in case you're wondering. So people care about population. Why do people care about population? Because the chance you're going to get a nice grey screen as soon as you reach any neutral flight point, go to hotspots, try to enter a dungeon, or just, leave Ironforge in general, is actually pretty high. So the big difference between 2005 and 2019. In 2005, the biggest issue was a shaman pressing Frost Shock. In 2019, it's faction imbalance and getting farmed for honor. Okay, that makes sense. And here is a rough summary of how faction balance looks with free transfers open.
No, 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 no.
Jokes aside, it's bad for both sides. At the end of the day, no one wants to be on a dead-end server, especially if you chose PvP, and given faction-specific transfers and no paid transfers, you're very much confined to your fate, which is out of your hands. And imagine how the literal handful of Alliance players who didn't get the memo are feeling now once the penny drops. So that's what's happened on the live game over the years, but that got me thinking. We've had dozens of private servers come and go, right? Have they ever had honor and ranking separated? How has that worked for them? How did the players respond? And yes, of course, private server populations are far smaller than live will ever be. You can absolutely bet the vast majority of the guys out there farming you as soon as you set your eyes on Blackrock Mountain are private server veterans. It's an environment that fosters a min-max mentality. You can bet that if the content did come out in a format similar to what we have on private servers, then it would have looked quite like what we have at the moment, just on a smaller scale. So let's take a look back through some private server patch notes and release timelines and see what we can find. Neverguard launched with Battlegrounds active. Nostarius launched with Battlegrounds active. Light's Hope Northdale released with Battlegrounds active. Chronos 1 released with Battlegrounds active. These are some of the larger servers and ones with timelines still available, but I think you get the idea. Elysium Nighthaven had a month between Honor and Battlegrounds just like Classic, so how was this received? So I couldn't actually find much on it, but from what I could generally tell, it was quite well received. It was a PvP only server, and I think for the most part, those who got involved knew what they were getting into. And it was a lot less people, so it made it a lot more tolerable. And you know what? I don't blame people for farming in the open world in Classic currently. It's a competitive system. Of course people are going to compete. There is physically no other way in Phase 2 than open world farming to earn honor. So if you want to rank, you have to do what is most efficient, which means taking out levelers, camping travel areas, putting up roadblocks at dungeons and so on. Unfortunately in 2019, we had World PvP and it was kind of in Phase 1. Phase 2 isn't really what you can call World PvP, it's grinding honor for ranking. And you know what the worst thing about it is? Pretty much no one is having fun here. People at the bottom are getting farmed like a thorium vein for a few honor points and barely getting anywhere. I don't even want to think what trying to level past 48 is like at the current state of the game. I personally would have copped out until Phase 3 if it's anything like I think it is. And in the past, I've underestimated the situation. For the regular level 60 guys who have tried ranking and still sometimes want to go to a dungeon to try for an item or go farm gold, they're having to pay the honor tax every time they want to go somewhere. I went to Dire Maul on my Warlock on Tuesday the other day, which is the point in time where all serious rankers should be done for the week, and I also went in the middle of the day, on a weekday by the way, Tuesday. And I died 6 times going from Feathermoon Stronghold to Dire Maul. This, by all accounts, should have been a pretty quiet point in the day, unless I want to try and do stuff in the middle of the night or something. This isn't World PvP. This isn't fun. People at the top end, those looking to rank, I don't think they're having a good time either. Let me explain to you how ranking is going at the high end. First things first, next to no servers are faction balanced. Early in the morning, Alliance tend to have control of more of the hotspots like Dire Maul, Blackrock Mountain, Gadget Zone, and so on. Early afternoon or late morning, Horde have woken up and start to occupy these areas as well. Now, Horde players are usually solo, but there's generally more of them, so it's like a group of solo players all trying to snipe a few honor points off each other. At this point, more of the Alliance tend to group up. Going solo becomes kind of impossible for a non-rogue. And as Alliance group, the Horde get a bigger group, more of them show up, and then Alliance get more people, and then Horde eventually get the most people. And then after that, the Alliance get camped for a while, and then disband, and the cycle repeats in a different zone. World PvP in 2019, by the way. It's even got to the point on Gehenna's where people are chain getting 1 kill and dying in Ironforge for over 10 hours a day. It's just madness. And there are really no winners in this whole affair. I think it's torn a huge hole in the community. I can only assume from Blizzard's perspective, it looks like something around the start of the Warlords of Draenor's subscriber count at the moment, because for all intents and purposes, the game is pretty unplayable for a lot of people at the moment. Many people look back to the good old days and say that flying killed world PvP, but it looks like in 2019 we don't need flying. All we need are some gear rewards and incentivization for people to go out and farm honor. With Battlegrounds around the corner, many people are hoping it will be some kind of saving grace, but it's not going to stop people's ability to farm in the open world. The top honor farming will swap to Battlegrounds for sure, especially pre-mades in Warsong Gulch. Things will be fine below level 60 mostly, but at 60, 10 people queue up, 1 person joins and scouts the enemy team. If it's versus another pre-made, they re-queue and swap out the 1 person that scouted, repeat until you're versus a pug, and then graveyard camp them for 20 minutes until they're DR'd on honor. And since there's no time limit, they're just going to hold your flag and camp you if you're solo queuing. Honestly, save yourself the hassle with Warsong Gulch if I think it's going to be anything like I think it will. Alterac Valley should see some pre-mades in there early as well, but it's likely to be less prevalent since, well, you're 40 versus 40, and if you're pre-made it makes much more sense to go Warsong Gulch. It's also a lot harder to coordinate a victory. Finally, I think more people will want to see Alterac Valley over Warsong Gulch, so I think more people will be solo queuing there as well, so that would be my recommendation if you're going in alone. And it's quite a sad situation to see really, but whose failing is it? Is it a failing? Blizzard have delivered according to the schedule that vanilla followed. And honestly, there wasn't much community influence to attempt to make a difference in this area. As mentioned earlier on, yes, I predicted it would be an absolute fiesta. Many of you guys did as well, and many of you sensibly rolled a PvE server, but Classic is largely community driven. We've seen countless private servers go through the motions of Classic time and time again. There were measures in place to predict that this would have happened. Honestly, if anything, we need to look ahead and keep the best interests of the game at the front of our minds. Looking at the rest of the content for Classic, I don't think we will reach a point this low again, and I truly do believe this will have been Classic's lowest point. As someone who's been playing and enjoying the game for well over a decade, it's hard to see it take a hit like this. Especially where I am now in a position where I'm talking to many thousands of people. I mean, I'm just a guy on the internet trying to put my points into a format that I hope makes sense. I don't want this to change or warp my opinions, but at the same time, it can be really hard keeping things PG for YouTube sometimes, believe me. So, let's recap. Classic World of Warcraft Phase 2. Was it any good though? No. No, it was bad. And that's the first time I've said that unconditionally. I do make an effort to see the positive light on things, believe me, but here I'm just not seeing it. Dire Maul aside, of course, Phase 2 has driven players out in spades, and many people will have a feeling that they're behind now, and to be fair, Classic has a linear gearing system, so it's understandable, but then again, raids are always relevant for the same reason. So if you're feeling this way, don't be too hard on yourself. Molten Core raids are not going to disappear once Blackwing Lair is out. Retrospectively, releasing Honor and ranking without Battlegrounds was a mistake. Not a mistake on Blizzard's part, not even entirely a mistake on the community's part, just a mistake. Could it have been prevented? Yes, Battlegrounds coming a lot earlier. Would have this happened? No, I don't think so, not a chance. No changes has been far too strong of a force leading up to Classic, myself included by the way. No changes cannot be selective. What makes that one thing you want so correct over someone that wants LFG? It has to be unanimous or it simply doesn't work. Who can predict the future 100% after all? In fact, getting Battlegrounds pretty fast after Honor and ranking are likely just maybe the best scenario here. Sometimes, just as the case of getting Honor and ranking aside from Battlegrounds, it's better just to see what happens, taking a risk rather than playing it 100% safe. In my opinion, potentially Battlegrounds could have come a little bit earlier than an arbitrary 1 month period, but I think it's not the end of the world. It's a decent little break for many people, a chance to level alts, take some time out of the game. It's not all purely negative, but very much what you can make of it. And that covers Phase 2 for me. Of course, you guys on PvE servers, let me know how life is for you. You'll have had far less of a headache by the choice of server that you've picked. For everyone else, how has Phase 2 been for you? What do you feel now we have Battlegrounds around the corner, and how has it affected your time and your future time in the game? Let me know what you guys are thinking. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.